Become a member in the description box below.
Next up, one of my personal heroes, Dr. Cornel West, a professor of the practice of public philosophy at Harvard University. Yay. Yay.
There's no doubt that I would not want to be any other place but here, because this particular gathering prefigures what is needed as the two-party system continues to degenerate. And as fellow citizens begin to see the unbelievable limitations and blindnesses of the corporate wing of the Democratic Party that is still in the driver's seat. I think that we have to be very honest and candid about where we are. We live not only in catastrophic times, not just Harvey and Irma and Jose and so forth, but it's catastrophe all the way down. It's ecological catastrophe. These things are not just happening as natural processes. It has something to do with corporate power that's been violating nature for so long, and nature now striking back. And this is just the beginning. The nuclear catastrophe, Russia, the United States, and the Democratic Party using Russia as some kind of excuse to not engage in serious self-criticism and interrogation. Oh, that's very important, very important. We've got political catastrophe, not just in Donald Trump. Let us never fetishize Donald Trump. Let's not give him magical power, some isolated individual. He is American as cherry pie. He comes out of American traditions of white supremacy and male supremacy and homophobia and transphobia, anti-Jewish sensibility, even with the Jewish daughter and son-in-law, you see. Anti-Palestinian to the core, ... Let's be very honest about that. But I want to say two things, because I look at it from the vantage point of the decline of the American empire. And we need to have spokespersons, candidates, who have enough courage to tell our fellow citizens the truth that go beyond the very narrow constraints of corporate media on the one hand, and the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, and the right wing, and the neo-fascists, and the neo-Nazis, and the KKK, who also are fighting for public space as the empire melts down. As it melts down. It's not just the grotesque wealth inequality. It's not just the intensification of the male supremacy and homophobia and transphobia. It's not just the expansion of the white supremacy, but it's the militarism and the imperialism too. You can't have a democratic experiment if 53 cents of your dollar are already headed to the military-industrial complex. Yep. You can't do it. You just can't do it. The 4,855 military units, 857 of them overseas in 42 nations, special operations in 140 countries. There's only 192 countries in the world. That's military overreach tied to imperial ends and aims. As much as I love my dear brother Bernie Sanders, and I'm deeply disappointed he didn't have somebody there to receive those signatures. I don't mind disagreeing with my brother, but on a spiritual and a moral level, if you don't have somebody there to acknowledge the people who work so hard day in and day out just to receive the signatures, we have questions for you. We have questions for you. And it's not a matter of trashing Brother Bernie. It's not a matter of demeaning Brother Bernie. He must be accountable and answerable like anybody else, including ourselves. Including ourselves. You see. And the last thing we want to see is our dear brother Bernie Sanders becoming too comfortable and adjusted to the corporate wing, the Schumers and the Pelosi's and the others. And the Hillary Clintons. Look like I just took a look at her book. Everybody's responsible but her. Exactly. So that the question becomes, we have to be honest enough to try to tell the truth. There's a spiritual blackout afoot in the country. That's the relative eclipse of integrity, honesty, and decency. It cuts across race, gender, sexual orientation, region, and that has something to do with the decay inside of the empire. And the empire is devouring what's left of the democracy. And that's one of the reasons why the right wing and the neo-fascists and the others are organizing so quickly. That's one of the reasons why a gangster like Donald Trump can fill a void, because the establishment of the Republican Party shattered. The establishment of the Democratic Party was pushed against the wall, but that establishment unfairly, I think in many ways, almost robbed Bernie Sanders of his right due. And I think Bernie Sanders would have beat Donald Trump. That's what the polls say. He would have beat him. You cannot beat the enthusiasm of a gangster who will say anything, is spectacle and no substance. But the corporate media who covered every word, every Twitter, every speech from the very beginning to the end to make money for revenues and ratings, and knowing it was bad for the country, allowed him unbelievable visibility. If they had given Bernie Sanders that kind of visibility, he'd probably be in the White House right now. It's true. So the question becomes, how do we attempt to be true to the best of what we understand ourselves to be, as people, as Americans, as human beings, and as internationalists? And we provide some alternative. Now, William James used to draw a distinction between live options and dead options. We've got to be a live option, a momentous one that has real concrete possibility. And my hunch is that even Brother Bernie may not last that long with the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, so he may come running many months from now. That's my hunch. But the point is, you can't proceed predicated on what he does. You can't do that. You can't do it, you see. It's a matter of principle, and principle applies to persons across the board. And we also know that without some kind of fundamental coming together, I know people like to use the word coalition. I like to use the word solidarity. Solidarity. But there's no solidarity without integrity, honesty, and decency. It's not just a matter of ideology. It's a matter of the quality of the persons who are part of those who constitute a solidarity movement. So we've got to have the same righteous indignation when we see our brothers and sisters, disproportionately Latino and Mexican, being demonized, as we do when we see Palestinian babies killed in Gaza. We got the same righteous indignation when you see trans folk being attacked by the police, and gay brothers and lesbian sisters and bisexuals being demeaned. The same righteous indignation when you see black folk locked in to Jim Crow Jr. Not just the mass incarceration regimes, but decrepit housing, massive unemployment, underemployment, indecent schools, on and on and on. When you see women having to deal with vicious domestic violence, it's just the peak of an ugly patriarchal iceberg. That's the raw stuff that goes into both movements and creation of third-party formations. And if we don't have that kind of willingness and courage to enact some of that integrity, honesty, and decency, then the same old narrow Machiavellian politics of short-term gain tied to big money, tied to big militarism, tied to refusal to understand that poor people and working people must be at the center of any vision of a third party. That's the fundamental thing. And that's why I'm here. Thank you all so very much.
Yes, thank you.